I wanted to discuss with you real quick before we sign off. Do you still have time for one more?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
So a couple months ago, someone on my Discord they said how let me quote them here. The main thing in the fandom is that people love to overlook how much of a piece of shit Rhaegar Targaryen is.
Mm,
He dishonored his
yes.
wife in front of every influential noble family in Westeros at the Tournament of Harrenhal. Then he ditched that wife to marry his side chick. Then he uses his wife's
Mm,
family's army in a war he caused and he loses, resulting in Lewin Martell, I believe that woman's uncle. No, or is
yeah.
it uncle or brother? No, uncle. Lewin
It's
Martell
her
is
uncle.
Elia's
Yeah.
uncle, yeah. Results in her uncle dying, didn't do anything about his batshit crazy father, and
It's her great uncle. I think it's Doran Mark. No, no, no. It's her uncle.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah. It's her uncle. I'm sorry.
Rhaegar didn't do
Yeah.
anything about his crazy batshit father holding Elia, his wife, and their children as
Hmm.
hostages, and sends the best knights in the Kingsguard to protect his bastard instead of his hostage children. That
Yeah.
last part I
Well,
understand. The Kingsguard.
that's assuming that John is, or it's assuming that actually it's not assuming. You're right that those whoever the child is at the Tower of Joy, um, they got three Kingsguard
To
guards,
basically protect the
and
side chick.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, the fandom loves to romanticize the whole thing between Rhaegar and Lyanna, and of course, when we first get to like the first story, the general consensus is that Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna and raped her. Of course, Robert
yeah.
Baratheon has put out this whole story because he won the war, therefore the victor gets to choose how history is written, and I guess
No,
that's
but that's her getting kidnapped is how Viserys and Daenerys know the story as well.
right. And I would
Yeah,
assume because, mostly it's Robert and the rebels, quote unquote, putting out the story that that's what happened. And
yeah.
I'm sure when we get Fire and Blood Volume 2, Gildane will dispute this. Um, or whoever ends up writing Volume 2 if it's not Maester Gildane. But no, yeah, Rhaegar Targaryen, not as great. And I feel like that's George trying
Yeah.
to shit on the whole idea that it's the knight in shining armor coming to rescue the princess. I feel like that's him taking a little stab and poke at that.
Oh, I mean, it's a very funny thing because George has been a little contradictory on how he even talks about Rhaegar. I mean, I remember him once saying that Ice and Fire is a story where the hero died before the story began, and it's like, oh, is Rhaegar supposed to be the hero? Really? Ugh, ugh. Like all the characters love Rhaegar, especially Barristan and people like that. But Rhaegar, no, Rhaegar was an absolute piece of shit. He was an absolute piece of shit. Um, yes, he has a wife, and he's trying to birth some like prophecy baby, and he goes to some meeting where he's probably trying to conspire to overthrow his dad, and then decides to just screw everything by going for some underage 15-year-old girl, and then eventually kidnaps her to have kids for his little prophecy uh, project, which by the way is worse than you think. Like the Targaryens, like they're Nazis. Like I'm not like sugarcoating this. Like they believe that they should keep their bloodlines pure, that they are gods and they are different from other people.
This is also kind of backed up in Fire and Blood with Jaehaerys' doctrine of exceptionalism that basically states that Valyrians themselves are kind of separate from the common man, and that certain rules don't apply to
Yeah.
them because they have that dragon blood.
Yeah, they believe they can't get sick. Yeah, they can do what they want, They, right. So I mean, the Targaryens are Nazis, and Rhaegar is on a eugenics quest to birth the master race baby to save the world. All right. This is like it's not any secret, okay? This is like right there in the text that he is from the Nazi family that believes that they need to keep their bloodlines pure, but eventually he's going to birth the perfect master race baby who will save the world. And he needs to just, practice the right eugenics to get there. Like, that's Rhaegar. And that's just the fact that he treated his wife horribly, and he was responsible for so many people dying. Yeah, no, he's an absolute idiot, moron, asshole. Thinking like, and everybody's like, oh, but he has good intentions. Well, I mean, Nazis believed they had good intentions, like in their mind. And
I'm sure their good intentions would have been written as kind had they won the war.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. And so it's ridiculous, and it's ridiculous. Like, I think what's even worse, it's one thing for George to write that, but what's so sick is that, like, no one realized it in the fandom. Like, you can put in Rhaegar and Lyanna art, and just all the love story batshit like art that people have created over Rhaegar and Lyanna, and the fact that like somehow the show like bought into that and missed the point. They're like, oh no, Rhaegar and Lyanna. Like, the only thing I'll say that's good about the show, and this is a lot of people's complaint, but they realize that the eugenics baby thing, saving the world, is a pretty bad story. And so they just decided to ignore it. They're like, okay, we made Jon the master race baby, and then he doesn't save the world, Like,
well, to play devil's advocate here, could you argue that Rhaegar's decision to run away with Lyanna was that their only real choice? Because there was no way, Lyanna knew that there was no way she could get away from this political marriage with Robert Baratheon. Her only real choice was to run away with Rhaegar, and hopefully he'll be able to overthrow his dad, who has been going crazy, and he needed an heir for that. And he'd rather have one with the woman he's loved, which I'm trying to devil's advocate here, but he already had an heir.
Sure.
Aegon the Sixth.
Why couldn't she get away from her marriage?
It's political. There's no way their father, fuck, I forgot the father's name. There's no way the father would take her and her whole idea and opinions into consideration. And not to mention,
I mean, if she has a request from the king that they break their marriage,
there's no way that they would risk the alliance of Dorne, because doesn't Dorne routinely only stay in the Seven Kingdoms because they're married into it?
Well, Aerys didn't like the Dornish. She didn't like the marriage. So I don't know. Well, I don't know. He was all paranoid about everything, but actually, I'm going to go back on. I'm not sure if Aerys didn't like the Dornish. I have to research that again. The first Dornish alliance was definitely not liked. The one that brought about the Blackfire Rebellion. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure about Aerys. I think I'll have to check up on that one. But I mean, he can I don't know, like I'm not sure what he wants. Like what's the desire here? That Rhaegar and Lyanna are in love?
Yes. And the whole marriage between Lyanna and Robert, obviously, once again, it's political. I don't think Lyanna's father, I keep forgetting, is it Rickon? Rickon, right? No, Rickard.
Rickard.
I don't think Rickard Stark would allow her to break that betrothal to Robert Baratheon just to marry the prince who already is married. And I think there's a lot of political ramifications if Rhaegar just divorced her. And is divorce even an option for a prince and Princess of Dorne?
There was a request by Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince. He requested that he have a marriage set aside, and it was denied. But so I don't know. I mean,
since Targaryens are above the normal men, they could always have multiple wives, which wasn't that done before, kinda.
Yeah, it was done with Maegor the Cruel. So that's the thing, is there's all these options he could have tried. Like, why not request that the alliance and then offer a different marriage in return, you know? Like whatever child is born by Rhaena would be married to Robert instead, or Robert would receive lands or something else, you know? Like there's always like options, you know?
To be fair, we're getting ahead of ourselves since the story is not done, and we
Right.
don't know if George plans to revisit the Rhaegar Lyanna topic in the future, especially considering the, whole Jon Snow parents thing that might be what it is. He might revisit this whole thing in the future since Barristan and maybe Jamie. I don't know who else from that timeline could shed more light and information on the situation, judging by like how everyone.
Yeah, it's tough because,
Eh.
we all think that Barristan's situation doesn't look great in Slaver's Bay. He may die. Uh, so we're not sure if we're going to have that point of view. And then it's like, who else was alive back then? I guess Jamie.
But Jamie wasn't
Jamie
in
had a lot of
that
insight.
area to know all this
Yeah.
information.
Howland Reed.
Oh, there we go back to Howland Reed. Not only is the
Howland Reed, the guy that knows everything.
He's the High Sparrow. He knows everything.
I guess there's Howland Reed. Now there's a dickhead. He's a fucking dickhead.
Howland Reed's an
too.
asshole.
Oh my god. Like Rob keeps requesting armies and he sends them nothing. He sends them nobody. Like he keeps calling his banners and nobody shows up from House Reed. He's like, okay.
Preston, how dare you? Like Howland Reed sent his 2 kids and he's holding the neck.
To Bran. He didn't send anything to the King of the North to fight any wars.
King of the North. He's thinking ahead. He's thinking about the real true king, Bran the Broken. How dare you?
Maybe. I don't
God,
know.
I hope George changes that. I hope he changes that. Holy shit.
I mean, for being Ned Stark's best friend, Jesus, or whatever, one of his best friends, closest companions, I guess Robert's his best friend, or Ned's best friend, but for being one of his closest companions, like he sends nobody. They didn't even hold the neck. They didn't even hold the neck.
They kind of held
like,
it.
Which
That's
was
just as good, right?
I mean, so the Ironborn were defending the neck with like 50 dudes. Like it was nobody. It took so few people to hold the neck. And he let Victarion just take the neck. Like you couldn't put like 400 people at Mount Caelan? Like nobody? Fine. Yeah. Okay. Okay, dude.
How did this turn into Howland Reed? How did this turn? I feel like every podcast you want to break away to bitch about Howland Reed. How dare you?
Sorry. Back to Rhaegar being a dick, being a Nazi, being a literal Nazi, in all of his beliefs. Yeah, no, he's horrible. He could have worked something out. Also, there's also the option of, oh, you fell in love with someone. Tough shit. Maybe hundreds of thousands of people shouldn't die over the fact that you want to get your dick wet. Like, Jesus Christ.
I still find it interesting that George said, Game of Thrones is the whole thing of how the hero died before the story begins.
Lots of people fell in love and didn't get to marry who they wanted to marry. Ned didn't marry Ashara Dane. Like, Lysa doesn't get to marry Littlefinger. Well, I guess she did marry Littlefinger, but
for like a day.
For a second, for like a day. Like a lot of people don't get what they want. Okay, why does Rhaegar like go hang out with a 15-year-old girl and like feel like he needs to be able to like get with that? Like what gives him that right? And the whole world has got to like drop and be like, oh yeah, no, please, like. Yeah, you guys do that because you spent like an afternoon together at a jousting tournament. By the way, have you ever seen Casablanca?
I have not, but I know what it is.
Oh, I mean, it's the ending of Casablanca is a beautiful, beautiful ending to a story, and he realizes that he's in love with her and she's in love with him, but you know what? Like, it's just not going to work out and he needs to let her go. And it's a great movie and it's okay. Like Rhaegar, like, why does Rhaegar need to be with the person he loves? Like, do the lives of hundreds of thousands, millions of people, like, not matter? Like, you know, I mean, everybody else is making sacrifices. Why wouldn't Rhaegar and Lyanna?
Because remember, he's a
And if you're
Targaryen. He's above the normal common
right,
folk.
right. And if the argument is, well, no, he's trying to save the world because of his Nazi eugenics plan. Like, oh, I'm sorry.
Go into detail about this Nazi
Oh,
eugenics
the
plan
Nazi eugenics.
for some of the show watchers who aren't familiar.
So there's a long-standing prophecy that the prince we don't know the exact details, but we know that the prince that Rhaegar believes that he was going to birth, the prince that was promised, that would save the world in some way. And this prophecy has been going for a long time, at least as far back as Aerys the First and Bloodraven, because they were obsessed with prophecy, and all these people they kept trying to hatch dragon eggs and do all these different things and get themselves burned up at Summerhall, and at least Aemon and Melisandre believe that the prince that was promised is the same person as Azor Ahai, which is the central figure in, the R'hllor religion, who is going to like fight and defeat the Great Other. So there's this idea that if the prophecies are the same, there's going to be this one person who's going to be like somehow saving the world, and that Rhaegar believes that he was either that person at first or that he needs to birth that person. And he seems to believe, piecing things together, he seems to believe that the dragon has 3 heads, that he needs to have 3 children. And that and that once he has those 3 children, then one of them will be the prince that was promised. And so Elia has 2 kids, and they tell her, oh, if she has any more, she's going to die. And so he feels like, oh crap, I'm stuck there. But then he seems to run into Lyanna, and we can't decide if he's in love with her on a personal level, or if he just wants to birth the prince that was promised, or if it's just luck. He happens to be in love with the person who also is his secret Nazi eugenics baby. But whatever the case, the fandom before, like when I first got into the fandom, and it's just message board after message board of R plus L equals J, like jerk off sessions about how like special Jon is, and how he's going to save the world, and how he's going to fulfill prophecy, and how it's going to be the greatest, most boring story ever. Like that was just years of people posting this shit. And then, none of those assholes who were like posting for years about R plus L equals J, Jon is the chosen one who's going to save the world against the others. Like none of those people like stopped and were like, oh, wait, he's a Nazi eugenics baby? Oh. And our author completely knows that he's a Nazi eugenics baby? Oh.
To be fair, I will say this, once again, to play devil's advocate, maybe the word Nazi is a bit too harsh, considering he's not really going for the genocide of a certain race of people.
I mean, his family did. I'm not saying Rhaegar himself participated in the genocide, but he's still like the post-Nazi, right? Like the Targaryens and the Valyrians before them were not great, They're not great people. They burned a lot of people. They killed a lot of people. They did a lot of bad. And they believed that they should keep their blood pure, and they should practice incest in order to keep their blood pure so that they could have a monopoly on dragons, which burned and killed people and maintained their monopoly on tyranny.
Well, Preston, that's just strategy, don't you think?
Yeah, okay. I'm supposed to like defend this? Like, no, he's a piece of shit. It's a piece of shit supporting a piece of shit system. Like, whatever.